Well, hello YouTube, it's me, Fortmaster, and welcome back to another Andrew Cunningham reaction. Everything about determination in Deltarune Chapter 2. My reaction to his video talking about like Gaster's motif and a lot of Deltarune's music was a lot more popular and did a lot better than I thought it was going to. Evidently, this is something I should probably look more into. And watching that video also made me realize that, that I've been kind of out of the loop when it comes to Deltarune theories for a while now. I mean, if you look at the reactions I do, I mean, the fact that I have the fact that I do a weekly reaction to game theory and film theory, kind of goes into that I like theorizing when it comes to video games and stuff like that. And I don't know how I kind of fell off the Deltarune theorizing wagon. But evidently it's something that I need to catch up on. And I mean, I'm going to do a reaction to a lot of Andrew's, Deltarune content, which is actually easier than I initially thought, because his channel doesn't actually have that many videos, which is very surprising to me. But yeah, I mean, everything about determination in Chapter 2, I mean, granted, it's been a bit since I've played Deltarune. Again, I'm waiting for the next chapters to release, but I don't remember determination being ever spoken, though then I'm well aware I might be wrong on that, but this might be all just literal theorizing about it, so, we gotta see. So, of course, as always, original video is linked in the description if you haven't seen it for some reason. Corner video will lead to my Let's Play of the day, and with all that out of the way, let's get this thing started then, shall we?
Many times over the last 2 years.
Oh yeah, 2 years ago, yeah,
a
right.
Seemingly simple question. Would I recommend they play Deltarune? Though the answer should be obvious, it's a question I've nonetheless found myself replying to time and time again, with a shrug, a nervous chuckle. Even over the course of 3 long years, my feelings about Chapter 1 refused to crystallize. They remained liquid and messy, too complex to fully articulate. Too complex, that was, until September 17th, 2021.
When
to
Chapter
explain
2.
this personal revelation, I can think of no other place to start than the quiet brilliance of the famous little scene.
Oh, never mind!
Fuck that, we're talking about lore. You saw the title of the video, you know why you're here, let's stop messing around. A lot of information has been dropped on us by this new chapter. Properties of Dark Worlds, implications about the nature of Chris, and, of course, the regulation-sized bale of fodder to be shoveled into the all-consuming furnace of Gaster speculation. I would be content talking about any of these really, but due to some practical considerations, such as this being the literal first video project I've ever attempted in my ant-sized and rapidly shrinking life, I've decided to focus on something a bit more modest for now, something familiar.
Power of determination.
Yeah, so determination is canonical in Deltarune now. Honestly wasn't expecting that, but sure, I'll take it.
Okay, well, I mean, that just goes to show that I can be wrong very quickly.
Seeing it pop back up after so long kind of feels like having my wedding crashed by a high school bandmate. There's an element of anger, of terror, and yawning dread as the dusty memories tumble back in from long-term storage.
Oh, God.
And I wonder how exactly they found my address. But, mostly I'm just happy to see them. Determination is never not fun to have around. It just tends to complicate things. So the question I'd like to ask now, and maybe even answer if we get lucky, is what exactly determination is in Deltarune? What properties does it
is it the
share
same
with its
thing as
counterpart
Undertale?
from Undertale? What doesn't it share? And that's basically it. That's the question.
Oh, alright, there you go.
Before we get too deep into Deltarune stuff, let's cover our bases and review how exactly determination worked in Undertale. Even though I'm sure that'll be redundant for my target demographic of vastly intelligent, no-life Uber fans, right?
I mean, you never know. You always gotta aim for the lowest common denominator. When it comes to things with me, I always like to assume that everybody's at least on the same level as I am.
Well, let's see. In universe, it was a metaphysical power derived from human souls, or that is, mostly from human souls. You could also wring just a tiny little bit out of monsters, but not enough to really do anything useful. Unless
the monsters weren't very determined,
in which
apparently.
case you can pump the shit out like Mountain Dew from the 7-Eleven drink fountain. You can use it to rewind
Most
time
monsters.
if you die, but only one person can do this at once, ostensibly whoever has the most of it. And whether that person who has the most of it actually means within a given universe, or any given cave system, or just in the same script is anyone's guess, but don't think about that too hard for now. If you have a really super duper great deal of the stuff, it can also bring you back from the dead without rewinding time, and generate, edible dreams and stuff. Actually, it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with time at all. In the hands of a monster, it's also a generic power source that can be used to, among other things, turn into a giant plant, shoot rainbow lightning, and open very large doors. Unless, of course, the
Very
power
large
of 7
doors,
human souls
yes.
that everyone is going on about in Undertale is actually just some other kind of innate, ambiguous property of souls in general, independent from determination, which could very well be the case, since the goal of Alphys' research in the True Labs was not to harvest determination itself, but to use determination to sort of embalm the souls of dead monsters so they could build up a big stockpile somewhere and eventually use them to break the barrier, which of course wouldn't be possible if not for the fact that determination could be somehow harvested from the souls of dead humans.
Actually, no, that's something I never realized before. So, it said that the barrier in excuse me, I'm going back on like Undertale theorizing here. Oh god, how many years has it been? But yeah, so the barrier was made by humans to keep the monsters trapped in the underground, right? But yet, to destroy the barrier, you needed 7 human souls. So unless... Is this actually, wait. I mean, it could be that there were like 7 mages or whoever magic users there were to close the barrier. Okay, you know what? The time and place. This isn't the time to think about stuff like this.
And could also be turned into presumably some kind of liquid and physically injected into living bodies, or recently deceased bodies, or plants apparently that have never even had a soul, in which case it will not only still give them time powers, but will also grant them sentience, but only if the plant accidentally turns out to have contained the essence of someone who used to have a soul but is now dead. What is essence? I don't know, and neither does Toby Fox.
But wait,
that's just
there's
literal
more!
interpretation. It's also supposed to be a metaphor for being able to save and load as the player
of a video game, because you're playing a video game, but except it's diegetic now. So in that case, it doesn't really come from being a human, it comes from being a protagonist. Something Keller's post-genocide monologue. It's like...
What the fuck was I talking about?
I don't know. This whole thing is it's breaking apart at the seams here. We need to slow down and get our thoughts together again.
Right, Deltarune. Determination is in Deltarune now, which is to say, throw all that shit I just said out the nearest window immediately. Because a new universe means new determination, and we need to try to figure out how this stuff works from scratch. So, first question. Does determination still come from human souls? Answer? Well, no. This one at least seems fairly clear-cut. The reason determination gets brought up in the first place is to explain how the dark fountains are made. A sufficiently determined being needs to stab the ground with a pointy object. Simple enough. And the two characters who were candidates to do this, Noel and Birdley, are both monsters. So there, case closed. Lighteners in general now seem to have determination, including monsters, but not darkners. Or case closed, that is, until you broaden the question to whether or not determination even comes from souls at all now. If you recall the bit at the end where Chris actually does stab the earth and create a fountain, which is only supposed to be doable by very determined beings, you'll remember that his soul is, at that point in time, stuffed into the living room couch.
Right, yeah, so the determination wouldn't come from the soul, it's coming from whatever's controlling the body. Which, given I've thought about it some, and I'm beginning to think that, that whatever is doing it isn't the original Chris. Like, I remember people suggesting that, like, we're the outside force, we're controlling Chris, and, like, Chris is able to rip us out temporarily. But just from the way that Chris's body walks and is moving so mechanical and stuff like that, I hesitated to believe that that's actually Chris. I believe that, I mean, maybe we're both outside forces and they're just the evil one? I don't know.
This could just be a case of a plot-convenient grace period being employed before the determination, I don't know, sort of trickles out from Chris or something like that. I mean, if we use Asriel as an example, then apparently that stuff holds its charge better than the battery in my laptop. But I still feel this basic assumption is worth questioning, mostly because the concept of souls in general has really been swept under the rug in Deltarune, but maybe that's a topic for another video.
Heart-shaped object.
Question 2. Does determination still let you control time? Answer, deeply unclear.
Oh god.
In Undertale, the main observable effect of having determination was being able to save and load the game. We see in Deltarune that Chris can do this, but once again, this isn't Undertale. For all we know, saving and loading in this game could just be saving and loading, reading and writing files to a disk, separate from the diegesis like in almost any other video game ever made.
Yeah.
Sure, Ralsei has a couple lines where he acknowledges the existence of save points, but Ralsei also has lines about
Pressing Z when the white rectangle is in the blue rectangle.
In other words, he has more tutorial in his DNA than Toriel, and his dialogue
Right,
about
yeah, I
game
guess.
systems can easily be explained away as utilitarian fourth wall breaks. Some text I do think is relevant is the narration that appears the first time you interact with a save point in Chapter 1. This reads,
At times you see it, flickering, the light only you can see. By second nature, you reach out and...
This does imply that saving is a power unique to Chris, but as you probably noticed, the narration goes out of its way to never mention determination by name. In fact, all save points so far in Deltarune, I'm pretty sure, have been careful not to reference determination in their flavor text. If
Yeah.
you want further evidence, there's actually a cut version of Ralsei's battle tutorial dialogue where he tells Chris that his soul has the power to, quote, determine fate. In the final game, of
Okay,
course,
so
he
that was
instead states
removed.
that Chris's soul holds the fate of the world. Tiptoeing around the word determination like this is such an obvious subversion of what any returning player would expect from Undertale that I can't not read it as Toby trying to leave room to redefine the concept in his new universe, or at the very least to drive a wedge between it and the concept of saving. Either that, or he's just being coy about it for no reason, which, while not exactly inconceivable for a being such as Toby, would strike me as a pretty cheap trick.
Yeah, I can
Another
definitely
weird
see the
point is
third
that
option
Chris
there.
now has access to 3 independent save files compared to Frisk's 1. This is obviously a no-brainer improvement in terms of game design, but it's not like Undertale's lack of multiple saves was caused by Toby being a shit programmer or something.
No,
In general, with programming,
was a
if you
game
can scrape
design.
together enough brain cells to get something to work once, then you can get 100,000 of it without too much additional effort. Undertale had 1 save file because that's all Frisk was capable of creating. Later on, when Flowey absorbs 6 human souls, he gets 6 files. Thus, the expectation is set. 1 soul equals 1 save file.
So Chris has... Oh, God. What? Okay, so, what was that I was saying before about there potentially being 2 beings in Chris? So if we work off the logic there, that 1 save file per soul, could that mean that there are 3 save files, 1 for us, 1 for Chris, and then 1 for whatever third thing is taking control of his body and ripping us out? Okay. That's a thought.
For Deltarune to break this precedent means one of 3 things. 1, the rule is just different in Deltarune for some reason, and now everyone gets 3 saves for the price of 1.
I mean, it is an alternate
Chris
universe.
secretly has 3 souls or some fanfiction bullshit like that. Or 3, saves are no longer tied to human souls at all, and Toby just gave you 3 for convenience. There's no silver bullet evidence for or against any of these as far as I know, but my money is firmly on the third one.
Because it's the least stupid.
Even then, saving still might be diegetic, but just handled by some other obscure, obtuse, arcane fragments of the
Get
world
outta
that is
here,
yet to be
Gaster!
revealed to us, such as the joy of analyzing a game 20 years before it will actually be finished.
Now I'm sad.
Question 3. Why? Why is it in the game again? After concealing it for 2 whole chapters, what is this big reveal supposed to mean? To me at least, this is the real question. Combing through the mechanical details is important for the sake of getting our bearings, of course, but ultimately it's all pavement on the road to the one true goal.
Yeah.
Trying to guess what Toby Fox is thinking. In Undertale, determination wasn't just a piece of flavor text or world building. It was arguably the crux of the whole story, the game's entire deconstructionist mindset boiled down into a single, easily parroted word. Essentially, it was a weapon that Toby could use to cut through the layers of long-cultivated abstraction that separate game worlds from the pragmatic digital logic that gives them form. And for that task, it was brutally effective. With all that in mind, the question I guess becomes, why does Deltarune need a weapon? What metatextual dragon has it set out to slay now that saving and loading are dead and buried? It definitely has at least one hefty target on its hit list, that being the uncanny relationship between player and protagonist, the nature of Chris as a puppet to a higher will, etc.
Yeah,
That's all very
definitely.
interesting, and I have no doubt that Toby is hiding
Very,
some of the
very
kind of
interesting.
ludonarrative scalpel up his sleeve for when the time comes to fully dissect that concept. But from everything we've discussed so far, especially the newly broken link between determination and human souls, it seems like that side of the lore is being kept deliberately separate from anything to do with determination. So then, If not that, what is it for? What, if anything, is being deconstructed? Well, to be perfectly honest, the evidence is running a bit dry at this point to tackle this question in any conclusive way. Determination has only just been introduced to the game, after all.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, I do have the inkling of an idea. So if you'll excuse me for a minute, I'll drop the empirical facade and indulge in some good old-fashioned speculation.
Yeah, you gotta love this.
Deploy the diagram.
Oh, okay.
Here I've plotted the roles of determination in Undertale and Deltarune, across both textual and metatextual layers of the game's narratives.
Okay.
In Undertale's column, both quantities are known. Textually, determination is the ability to rewind time upon death. Metatextually, it represents the player's ability to save and load the game. Because the whole point of Undertale was to traverse the boundary between these two layers and explore the relationship between both concepts, we can outline a pretty solid mapping from each to the other. The textual role of determination as time travel is simply the ability to save and load the game reimagined as a concrete supernatural power. In the same way, saving and loading can be considered a mundane and abstract version of time travel. Now, what happens if we applied this model to Deltarune? Fortunately for us, the textual role of determination is known with some degree of certainty.
Create
It lets lighteners
fountains.
create dark fountains, and by extension, dark worlds. The metatextual interpretation, though, is as of yet unknown. The whole point of question 3, after all, was to figure this out. However, once we bring the relational arrows back into the picture, this blank space starts to look a bit more like an unknown variable from an algebraic equation. And I
Yeah.
can only think of one solution that might fit the bill.
Create fiction.
Creating fiction. So far I've talked at length about themes and concepts from Undertale that don't seem to be present in Deltarune, but not so much the reverse. Deltarune packs at least one major element that its predecessor lacks. That is, loneliness. The fact that, sometimes, life kinda sucks, even without ancient vendettas, or magical imprisonment, or an intricate network of supernaturally undead children to dampen the mood. One quality the main cast of Deltarune all share is that prior to their involvement in the game's story, they weren't having a good time. Susie was an emotionally guarded bully, unable or unwilling to express herself except through hostility. Noelle was stuck alone with her distant mother, facing constant anxiety over her father's illness.
Yeah.
Birdley was, and steadfastly remains, an absolute degenerate, but nonetheless wasn't happy because of that. And Chris, I think, speaks for theirself. Hand in hand with this unhappiness comes the appeal of escaping into an alternate world, into a narrative where your problems may be grander by an order of magnitude and yet somehow are still preferable to another sleepless night in a deserted house, eating way too many chocolates, counting the days till your brother comes home. Now let me be clear, I'm under no illusion that claiming Deltarune deals with themes of escapism is a fresh take. That's been pretty clear since Chapter 1.
Yeah,
But what
pretty
I think
much
has been
so,
slightly
yeah.
more overlooked is that the mirror of escapism, its enabler in some sense, is creativity. In order to escape into a dark world, whether metaphorical or literal, someone must first bring that world into being. This impulse to create fiction, to claw yourself out of an intractable reality by fabricating your own, is, I'm sure, familiar to anyone who would bother watching a video like this. And likewise, I'm sure you know all too well that in the hands of the right person, under the right circumstances, and given enough determination on the part of its creator, a fictional world can become frighteningly real. It can grow beyond its origin, it can influence countless lives, or even completely consume them. And, well, I don't think it could actually summon titans out of the sky and destroy the world, even if you got the subreddit to brigade, but you see where I'm going with this. The determination that the Lighteners share, the power to pull a fountain from the earth, to create their own dark world, might be the same power that Toby Fox used to create Undertale back in 2013. Ignoring for now how aggressively stupid that sounds when spoken aloud, this interpretation lets us fill in our diagram nicely. The dichotomy of mundane versus fantastical carries over from Undertale 1-to-1, while the transition from abstract to concrete can be tweaked slightly to encompass how the Dark Worlds physically recreate the psychological effects exerted by fiction. Whether you actually like this interpretation, or choose to write it off as the tenuous ramblings of a man who hasn't left his house since the release of Chapter 2...
No, I like it.
I probably agree with you. I'm only 50-50 on this idea myself, but at the end of the day, it's the only conclusion I can reach by extrapolating from what little we already know, and I've got to put my doofy fan theory chips down somewhere until the next chapters drop in 2030. Maybe
Yeah.
it's just me projecting, but it just makes a little too much sense that in the wake of the space-time warping success of his first game, Toby would envision a world wherein creative energy manifests itself as cataclysmic geysers of darkness, bent on consuming the world and permanently severing its inhabitants from reality.
I mean, that would definitely be something different. Okay. Well, again, I mean, we won't find out whether that's true or not until the release of more chapters, but still. And what, like, was later, and what he was talking about in the later video about the musical motifs, and, like, the fact you have this world that you can also, like, have an extra layer of that where, again, like, it's a smaller bubble, like, the world within real reality, and you have one of the characters, Noelle, being prone or being able to very easily find like glitches or stuff in games when she herself is in a game in a created world. Okay. It definitely is something. Huh. Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, even if this is like one of his older videos, definitely still very good. Oh, love that. So yeah, I mean, I know there are still 2 more like Deltarune based videos that Andrew has put out that I want to react to. It's everything about Chris's soul in Deltarune Chapter 2, and everything about the narrator in Deltarune Chapters 1 to 2. So, I mean, we still got a lot more to go, and I'm gonna have to see if there's like any more stuff. I mean, if anybody has like any more like Deltarune theories or Deltarune videos that they could suggest me, of course, I mean, you can leave it in the comments, or you can go onto my Discord and also leave the links there. But yeah, I guess with all that out of the way, of course, as always, original video is linked in the description. If you haven't seen it for some reason, corner video will lead to my Let's Play of the day. And with all that out of the way, I hope you guys liked. If you did, leave a like, subscribe if you have not, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.